Buried memories surge as Matthew Griffin, once inseparable from the young elephant Daisy, returns to Africa after 50 long years. Has the majestic giant, now weathered by time and life's trials, retained the spark of their unforgettable bond? In an atmosphere charged with deep emotion and fading reminiscences, an unexpected reunion is about to unfold. Before continuing the story, tell me which city you're watching from. I want to know how far this video has come. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so I can send you exciting stories like this every day. Thank you. Can you really confirm it's him? Matthew Griffin questioned, his tone filled with both doubt and longing as he held an aged photograph of a young elephant. The elephant in the image had expressive, gentle eyes, and the memories seemed like they belonged to another lifetime. At 63, Matthew was returning to Africa, a place he hadn't set foot in for nearly 4 decades. Life had taken him far from his youth in the African wilderness, but he had never forgotten Daisy, the orphaned elephant he'd helped raise. In his early 20s, Matthew had been a volunteer wildlife researcher back then, working tirelessly with young elephants at Greenfield Sanctuary, a place that had once felt like home. News reached him that an elephant matching Daisy's description had returned to the sanctuary, sparking a flood of emotions. Matthew had not seen or heard about Daisy in 50 years, ever since the elephant was relocated to another reserve. Over the years, Matthew had wondered what had become of the young calf who had once been his shadow. Now he couldn't resist the call to see if it was truly Daisy. Matthew knew the odds weren't in his favor. Elephants lived long lives, but they also learned to adapt and move on. When he arrived at the sanctuary, he was welcomed by Amanda, a young ranger in her late 20s who introduced herself as the daughter of his former colleague, Robert. "My dad used to tell me stories about you and Daisy," she said warmly, her smile lighting up her face. "You two were inseparable." As they strolled through the sanctuary, Matthew shared the old photograph of Daisy and recounted cherished memories of their time together. "He used to follow me around like a puppy," Matthew said, his voice thick with nostalgia. "We'd play hide and seek among the trees. He always found me, though." Amanda listened intently, but her expression was tinged with caution. "Matthew," she said gently, "you should prepare yourself. It's been a long time. Elephants have strong memories, yes, but nearly 4 decades is a lifetime." Despite the warning, Matthew couldn't shake the hope that clung to him. He remembered the unique bond he shared with Daisy, the mischievous glint in the elephant's eyes, and the way he would respond to Matthew's voice. It was a connection too deep to simply fade away, wasn't it? As they approached the main grounds, Amanda explained that Daisy had been spotted returning to the reserve about a year ago. He was one of the oldest elephants there now, and while he showed signs of recognizing certain places and things, no one had seen him respond to a person the way Matthew was hoping. The odds were stacked against him, yet Matthew's determination only deepened. "I just have to see him," Matthew whispered softly, "even if he doesn't recognize me. I need to know he's all right." As Matthew walked the well-worn trails of Greenfield Sanctuary, memories came rushing back in vivid waves. He felt the passage of time pressing heavily on him while he navigated the sprawling landscape. The sanctuary had grown immensely, and the influx of visitors was noticeably larger than before. It was no longer the modest sanctuary he remembered. It was now a bustling reserve with tourists, school groups, and researchers alike. Matthew spent the morning retracing his old routes, stopping by the ranger's quarters where he used to feed the young elephants. He couldn't help but smile as he recalled Daisy's antics, the time the calf had managed to sneak into the kitchen and steal a whole bunch of bananas. As he passed by the training pens, Matthew noticed some of the younger elephants playing, reminding him of Daisy's playful nature. In the afternoon, Amanda took him to see Robert, who had come out of retirement to visit when he heard Matthew was back. Robert looked older, but his eyes still carried the same spark of curiosity. They embraced like lifelong friends who had shared not just a workplace, but a deep passion for wildlife. "Good to see you, Daniel," Robert said warmly, giving him a firm clap on the back. Side by side, they walked through the sanctuary, talking about all the changes that had taken place over the years. As the two old friends reminisced, Matthew felt a swirl of emotions. Excitement mingled with a tinge of anxiety. He started to wonder if Daisy would still have that same mischievous spark in his personality, but Robert's cautious words tempered his expectations. "I won't lie to you, Matthew. We've seen Daisy up close a few times. He's different now. Wiser, yes, but also more reserved. The years have changed him. The bond you once shared might now feel like a distant memory to the elephant." But Matthew refused to let go of hope. He needed to believe that the elephant he had cared for and loved all those years ago was still in there somewhere. He clutched the old photograph he had brought with him, a symbol of the past. The following day, the reserve held a special event where visitors could observe the elephants in the open fields. Matthew knew that Daisy would be there, and he could feel his heart pounding with anticipation. The event attracted a larger crowd than he had expected. Families, children, photographers, and even journalists were present, their chatter filling the air. As the elephants emerged, the crowd's excitement grew. Matthew's eyes scanned the group, and then he saw him. The towering, majestic elephant strode steadily across the open field, his size and age distinguishing him from the rest. His tusks had grown long and elegantly curved. His skin was thicker and more weathered. Yet his movements carried a familiar grace that Matthew recognized instantly. Daisy stopped, and for a brief moment it seemed as if his gaze scanned the crowd before settling on Matthew. The moment was fleeting, but it ignited a spark of hope in Matthew. Could Daisy have remembered him? He called out to Amanda, who was stationed near the edge of the field, explaining what had happened. She suggested Matthew move closer once the event ended. As the crowd began to disperse, Matthew carefully approached the field, keeping his distance to avoid startling Daisy. He held out the photograph, his voice trembling as he called Daisy's name. "Daisy, it's me. Do you remember?" "Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much." The elephant's ears flicked, but there was no clear sign that he recognized Matthew. The crowd had dispersed, leaving the area nearly empty, except for a few staff members and the remaining elephants. Matthew felt his hope falter. Was this the closest he would come to reviving their connection? Then something unexpected occurred. Another elephant nudged Daisy's side, prompting him to let out a deep rumble as his trunk rose slightly in Matthew's direction. It wasn't much, but it was enough to ignite a spark of recognition. Amanda, who had been observing from a distance, noticed the subtle exchange and quickly gestured for Matthew to take another step forward. Just as Matthew took another cautious step forward, Daisy's posture changed. His ears flared, and he moved quickly toward Matthew. There was a sudden shift in the air. What had seemed like a quiet moment was now charged with tension. Matthew froze, his mind racing. Was Daisy angry? Had he misjudged the situation? Before he could react, Daisy's trunk wrapped around his waist, lifting him off the ground. The massive creature held Matthew upside down, and a gasp went through the small crowd of onlookers who had stayed behind. To the bystanders, it looked as if the elephant was about to hurt him, and panic rippled through the staff members who were ready to intervene. Dangling in the air, Matthew could do nothing but meet Daisy's gaze, searching desperately for a hint of familiarity or hostility. A rush of adrenaline coursed through him, his heart thundering in his chest. Yet he forced himself to remain composed, trying to comprehend what was unfolding. For a few agonizing seconds, it felt as though his destiny was sealed. Then, just as abruptly as it began, Daisy gently set him back on the ground, his movements unexpectedly tender. The tension shattered, and Matthew let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The rangers relaxed, and Amanda rushed to his side, her eyes wide with concern. "Are you okay? What just happened?" she asked breathlessly. "I think he knows," Matthew said, his voice filled with awe and relief. There was something in his eyes, like he was trying to remember. Daisy took a step back, his trunk extending toward Matthew in a gesture that seemed almost hesitant, as if he was still trying to place this man who had once been so important to him. Matthew moved closer, his hand reaching out until his fingers brushed the elephant's rough skin. He could see something in Daisy's eyes, curiosity, perhaps even recognition. Slowly, the elephant lowered his head, and Matthew whispered, "Daisy, I never forgot about you. Tears welled up in Matthew's eyes, not just because of the reunion, but because of the overwhelming realization that Daisy, despite the passing of nearly 4 decades, still seemed to recognize him on some deeper level. Daisy's demeanor shifted, hesitation giving way to a sense of recognition, as if a long-buried memory had suddenly come to light. His trunk extended toward Matthew's face, moving with cautious curiosity, tracing the air as though reacquainting himself with an old friend. For a moment it felt as though time itself stood still. The remaining visitors, rangers and staff watched in hushed amazement, bearing witness to the reawakening of a bond thought lost to the years. The atmosphere was charged with an emotion so profound that even the animals in nearby enclosures fell silent. Then Daisy emitted a deep, rumbling purr, an unmistakable sound Matthew remembered well from the days when the young elephant would nuzzle against him as a calf. The crowd around them, realizing they were witnessing something extraordinary, began to murmur softly. Some had tears in their eyes, moved by the rare and raw display of connection between man and beast. Cameras clicked, capturing the moment for posterity. Amanda moved closer, her voice a soft whisper. "I've never seen him behave like this with anyone," she said, clearly amazed. "It's as if he really does remember." Matthew nodded, overwhelmed by a wave of joy and relief. "He does," he said softly. "This isn't just a coincidence. This is Daisy. My old friend is still in there." Daisy's response was heartwarming. He nudged Matthew's chest gently, as if to say, "I remember you." The elephant then took a step back and lifted his trunk high in the air, letting out a triumphant trumpet call. It was as though he was proudly announcing that he had found something, or someone, precious that had been lost. The sanctuary staff allowed Matthew more time with Daisy, hoping to see if the bond could deepen further. But the reunion, while heartwarming, also posed a challenge. Daisy's behavior had become unpredictable due to the years spent in the wild. The staff suggested a gentle test to see if Daisy would respond to familiar routines Matthew once used in their old days. Matthew had an idea, a simple game he used to play with the young calf years ago. Back then, he would crouch behind a tree, and Daisy would delight in finding him. Hoping to stir a deeper recognition, Matthew decided to recreate the game in a wooded area of the reserve. As he headed toward the cluster of trees, Daisy followed at a cautious distance. Once they arrived, Matthew slipped behind a massive baobab tree, his heart racing with anticipation. Peeking out from his hiding spot, he watched as Daisy paused, seemingly trying to make sense of the situation. After a brief hesitation, the elephant moved closer, his trunk swaying from side to side, searching for the familiar figure from his past. Just as he had done decades ago, Daisy found Matthew, but this time he stopped and hesitated before coming closer. It was a small victory, but it gave Matthew hope that Daisy could remember more. However, the game's repetition also exposed the changes in Daisy's behavior. The elephant's moments of hesitation were longer, and he often looked toward the open plains as if expecting to leave. Daisy's time spent with the herd had clearly influenced his instincts, making him more alert to possible threats. Matthew realized that while the bond was being rekindled, there were still barriers built by the years of separation. Amanda, observing from a distance, noticed Daisy's growing restlessness. "Matthew," she called, her voice cautious. "Maybe we should give him some space. He's been through a lot today." But Matthew wasn't ready to end the day. "Just one more try," he said, his voice tinged with determination. Matthew took a deep breath and reached into his backpack, pulling out an old bell, a cherished relic from their early training days. The sound of the bell had once been Daisy's signal for playtime. Matthew rang it softly, the clear, familiar tone resonating through the air. For a moment, Daisy stood still, his ears spreading wide as he listened intently. The next moments were critical. If the sound triggered an unpleasant memory or overwhelmed him, it could set back their progress. Matthew waited, barely breathing, as he watched Daisy's reaction. Daisy took a hesitant step forward, his eyes fixed on the bell. Slowly, he approached Matthew, reaching out with his trunk to nudge the bell. Matthew's heart swelled with a mix of joy and relief. He gently stroked Daisy's trunk and continued to ring the bell at intervals, trying to make the memory stronger. The elephant appeared to relax, and then something extraordinary unfolded. Daisy knelt down, lowering his massive head gently against Matthew's chest, just as he had done as a calf when seeking comfort. It was a gesture of profound vulnerability and trust. The staff members observing from a distance were struck silent with awe, and even Amanda seemed visibly moved, her emotions written across her face. As Matthew stood motionless, overwhelmed by the weight of the moment with Daisy's head resting against him, their peaceful reunion was suddenly disrupted by an unexpected visitor. Another male elephant, younger and more aggressive, had wandered into the area. He was known for challenging the older elephants, and seeing Matthew so close to Daisy seemed to provoke him. With a sudden loud trumpeting, he began moving toward them, his posture displaying signs of agitation. The staff acted quickly, trying to guide the young elephant away, but he refused to back down. Daisy's calm demeanor shifted to one of protectiveness. He rose to his full height and positioned himself between Matthew and the approaching bull, his ears flaring out in a clear warning. Amanda shouted to Matthew to retreat, but Daisy stood his ground. The younger elephant eventually backed off, unwilling to challenge the elder's authority. It was a brief but powerful display, proving that Daisy still possessed a sense of guardianship over the man who had once cared for him. Matthew watched in awe as Daisy returned to him, wrapping his trunk around Matthew's arm gently, as if reassuring him that everything was okay. In that moment, Matthew felt like a young researcher again, with everything feeling new and special, and in some way, he suspected Daisy felt the same. As this heartfelt story draws to a close, we are left in awe of the enduring power of memories and the bonds that defy the passage of time between humans and nature. The emotional reunion between Matthew and Daisy has shown us that even after 40 long years, friendship, trust, and cherished memories remain unbreakable. Every tender moment, when Daisy gently embraced Matthew with his trunk, or when their eyes met filled with longing and understanding, carries a profound message of forgiveness and the belief that true love and connection can overcome any obstacle time throws our way. Imagine how these powerful emotions could inspire even more people when shared with a community that loves nature as much as you do. If you found this story moving and uplifting, please hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Every subscription is a pledge to join us in spreading more meaningful and touching stories about the wonders of the wild and the extraordinary bonds between humans and animals. Together, we will explore more incredible tales where simple moments turn into unforgettable memories. Thank you for watching and listening. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family to help spread the message of love and appreciation for life. We look forward to seeing you in our upcoming videos where more magical stories await.